listening to the Brenton On Tour Podcast.
That's right.
He travels the world running concerts and searches for the best coffee, people, and amazing stories so you don't have to.
Pay attention, you're going to learn something for a change.
This is a show about all of those things and much, much more.
You're blowing my mind right now. I hope someone's recording this.
So settle in, pour a cup of amazing coffee. He's a coffee snob, by the way. Crank that ghetto blaster and enjoy the 150,000 ranked podcast in the land.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
I think that's an exaggeration. It's the Brenton On Tour Podcast.
Any question?
Here's BD.
Welcome, everybody. It's another week. It's another Making It series. It's another guest who has made it, has his own definition of making it. I mean, everyone, of course, has their own definition of making it. But this guy's on tour like I'm on tour right now. So we're kind of in the same universe right now. We're experiencing the same stuff. We're traveling around. It's been the first time in a long time where bands are kind of getting back to it. Obviously, last week I had Corey Churko on from Shania's band. And he's been doing residency in Vegas, and that's just kind of getting up and running. And then, you know, the world's kind of taking various forms and all the rest of it. But my guest today, I met a couple of years ago on this tour for you guys watching at home, Corn and Alice in Chains. These guys were with us, and great guys, fellow coffee lovers, which was very important on this trip. And Chris and I have been trying to pull this thing together for a couple of weeks, and finally have the same days off. I'm in St. Louis. He's in beautiful New Mexico. So, Chris Dudley, welcome to the Brenton On Tour Podcast.
Howdy.
Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, man. Yeah, speaking of coffee, I was not able to find a good cup today, so I just went with the nitro at Starbucks because it's there. So.
Right. Now, you are in New Mexico, and some of my favorite coffees there in New Mexico, actually. How close are you to Albuquerque?
I have no idea. We're in Las Cruces, so
okay.
However far that is, I know that there's I know the stuff that's around our bus, and that's basically it. So I was not really wanting to go anywhere further than walking distance from our bus, and today that was Starbucks. So
I'm in St. Louis. One of my favorite coffee places is here, and then they closed through all the madness. And then I found out that they just partnered with one of my favorite brunch spots here. So it was a double win for me today in St. Louis. The coffee journey was fantastic. So
that's great. Love it.
Anyways, been a while.
Yes,
how are you, man?
long.
What's going on? It's been a long time. We've been through a lot since we saw each other last. But Chris plays in a very excellent rock band, metal band.
Yes. What's funny is that tour that we did together with Corn and Alice in Chains, that was the last tour really that we did before COVID hit. And that was, that was what, mid 2019, I think?
Well, that was the summer of 2019.
Yeah. And for us, that was it. And then we had a tour booked for the summer of 2020 with Slipknot. And then, the world fell apart after that. So it's this is our first tour back since then, which is it's crazy that it's been that long, but I'm just wicked thankful. Like super.
Is it? Yeah, it's such an odd feeling, right? Because you're sort of in this zone of being home and relaxed and chilled, but you as a musician, you know, you guys are getting antsy. At least you can create at home and maybe keep your brain working from ideas. I mean, you probably, I would assume with the amount of creativity with you guys that there's, 8 records worth of music in the can, but I know that you guys are always creating, and on the road, you were always doing stuff, and I was watching you guys. It was great. So this pandemic time has been a blessing and a curse for a lot of people. Not being able to play to your fans, online shows only, and sort of losing a bit of that connection, but the creativity levels must be through the roof. So,
yeah, I can say for sure that, because when we were on that tour together in 2019, we were, working on our record and, trying to figure out what that was going to look like. And I can say for a fact that if COVID had not happened, the record that we just put out would not be nearly as good as it is, because we had a group of songs, we had what was looking like was going to be the record, and then once we realized that we were definitely not touring in the summer, and we might not be touring until 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
We decided to just sit on it, because we didn't want to put out a record and then just be at home. And we sat on the record for about a year. And through that time, we had, some perspective, and we were able to go back and listen to the stuff a little more objectively. And we just realized that it just was not up to the par. It wasn't up to par. It wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. So, I think only like one song from that initial batch ended up making it through to the record. And we just we all used all that time at home, in different ways creatively. But, the big thing for us as a group was, really getting the record to where it needed to be. And it was a lot of wrenching and a lot of working, but I'm freaking stoked on it.
Yeah. And you hear about those stories a lot when bands are putting stuff together, and they're, like you hear about bands fully scrapping. I think I read this story about Miles Kennedy from Alter Bridge, and who sings with Slash, had his solo record and then just completely scrapped it and started over. And then, so the record that we got was great, but I'm like, what was that album that he didn't release? And in his opinion, it wasn't up to par, but then he puts out a record that's really great. It's all perspective. So are those songs gone, or you're like, we're just going to repurpose them and we're going to try this again? Maybe there's some riffs that we love out of that thing that we're going to pull into something else or whatever,
It's a little bit of all of those. We didn't have, we only had one fully fleshed out song that ended up not making the record. The rest of it was like, because we didn't want to have the record and then go and just record it. We wanted to have an idea of what the record was going to be. A lot of starts, a lot of half songs, some demos, things like that. There are a lot of those things just out there that never got used. Starts that we thought we were going to turn into songs, demos of songs that we were like, all right, we're going to go into the studio and finish this. But then those were the things that, through all the COVID time, we were just like, man, this stuff isn't as good as the start as we need to have. So, we've got a whole Dropbox of ideas, of starts, of demos, of stuff that just never ended up happening. But, there are some nuggets of good things in there. And we may at some point go back and salvage some of that, but that's just, sometimes it's a messy creative process, but it works for us.
Yeah. And you do a lot. I mean, you do a lot. We were talking a lot of tech on tour and a few things. And I'm amazed at the technology that artists have access to right now. And I had a couple of weeks ago, I had a producer on that basically was saying, there's all these tools that artists have, access to, and they can produce their own records. And for somebody like you guys that are like production heads and that are dive in and have all these ideas, his main point was like, the problem with that is that there's no one to say no anymore. So bands are making these records that sound great and amazing ish. I'm just saying, like, from the standpoint of like the A&R process, the label process is sort of like, there's still that one level of person that goes, okay, it's almost there. It's not quite there. We need another song or whatever that's going to be. I don't know what the dynamic of Underoath is, or how you write and who makes those decisions, but is having the amount of access to being able to produce your own stuff, and as smart as you guys are, is there somebody else saying to you, it's not quite there, or it's all the way there, or you need to kind of change it up a little bit? Like, who says no to Underoath? Or, to get that record out? Who says no?
No one's ever said no, thankfully.
Okay.
We have kind of designed our team and our, who we work with around just saying, look, like, we are the ones who write the music, and we will deliver that music when we feel it is where it needs to be. And then we hand it off to label, to promotion departments, like
Sure.
all that stuff. It's like, that's what you guys do. We'll make the music and you guys take care of everything else. There has been, this is the first record that we've ever self-produced. And we've always gone to a producer, and, I don't think that prior to this record and this time, I don't think that we would have been able to self-produce a record. Just from a production skill level, but then also, we always, a producer for us always kind of, without it being stated up front, had a position of kind of being a kind of like a referee, kind of a middle voice amongst us, because when we get into the studio, it can historically be a bit of a tension-filled time. So, we really had to have a talk amongst ourselves as far as like, hey, like, do we think we can do this? Like, is this what is best for us?
Sure.
And, we just got to a point where like, look, like, I'm doing a ton of film score work. Aaron is writing with like just a million different artists and doing stuff for them. Tim is recording bands, Spencer's doing stuff with a bunch of other people. And it's like, why can we not just make our own record, And, as far as like, who's there to say like, it's not quite there. We've never really worked with people who did that. We would work with like, if we work with a producer, they might, we might be working on a part or a song and like, oh, that's cool. Like, why don't you chase that? Like, but like, if somebody like there were producers in the past that we wanted to work with that came to us and, we showed them our songs and they were like, yeah, like, well, we'll just have to change this chorus and we'll have to do this and that song's not going to make it and all that. And that didn't last very long. We were like, oh no, that's not, that's not how this is going to work. Like, we're going to write this stuff and we want you to help us make the best version of what we do. But you can't tell us what is going to be on our record and what's not. So, but thankfully we're in a position where we can do that because of, our labels have never been the type of labels that will say like, that's not it, go back, so
yeah,
very thankful.
That's good. That's a good thing. And because I would imagine you would also go a little nuts with like, would you have a billion ideas? I mean, we've got so many things, and traditionally, I guess a producer's job is to wrangle that together. You touched on, you doing film and TV and everyone else is doing a ton of stuff. We know Aaron's super busy and the guys are busy. But what is the history of Chris here? Because we touched a little bit about it on tour. But you're busy outside of Underoath as well, and you do a bunch of stuff. So I guess I want to kind of dive into Chris a little bit, and outside of Underoath, what keeps you busy? What do you do?
I do a lot, creatively. I think it was I've always wanted to score film. Like, that's always been something that I've had a desire to do. But it wasn't until probably early to mid 2017 that I really was like, okay, this is going to be something I'm going to do, because I had talked about it for years. And, I've told this story before where, me and my wife were just laying in bed watching a movie. And, I forget what movie it was, but I said to her again, this is probably late 2016. I was like, man, like, this score is awesome. Like, I wish I could do that. I want to do that one day. And she was like, well, why don't you just do it? Why don't you just say you do it and then see what happens? And I had every excuse under the sun to not. I was just like, it's such a learning curve. I don't know if I have the connections to be able to do that. Where would I even start? Blah, blah, blah. And she was just like, just do it. Like, start, learn, and that's what I did. And it's really been a snowball effect from there. I'm on this tour, I'm working on finishing up I think it's my 5th feature. I've got 2 that are out now that, anybody can watch. And then I've got,
which ones are they? Let's get them out.
There's one called Bad. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you did the full score, or you contributed to the score, or you've scored the whole movie?
I scored the whole movie.
Amazing.
Well, one of them called Bad Candy. I did the whole score for that. It's a horror film that just came out earlier this year, I think, or late last year. And then there's a period piece called Whelm that I scored. But that one, it was interesting because I ended up working with the director on that one because he's a ridiculous musician. So he wrote some on that, and I did the rest. And so that one was really cool. I've got one that I scored called God's Waiting Room. That was at Tribeca Film Festival last year and won some awards there, which was awesome. And that I think is going to be coming out this year. I have the one I'm working on now is called Breathing Happy. It's a pretty trippy movie about a guy coming up on his 1 year sobriety and how he is dealing with that, and it goes to some crazy places, but I'm finishing up that now. The last movie I got done doing is called Peace in the Valley, and it's the next movie from the director Tyler Riggs, who directed the film that we got into Tribeca last year. So it's his next one. And then after I finish up the one I'm working on now, I've got one called the title's tentative, but it's like a PG/PG-13 werewolf movie. It's like kind of like a teen werewolf movie, which I'm super stoked on because I've never done anything like that before. Yeah. So it'll be something that my kids can watch for a change.
Is the scoring business just as competitive as music, if not more?
I don't know. I've never been the type to have that, like, well, I guess people would call it like a famine mentality, where it's like, there's only so many concert tickets that can be sold. There's only so many movies that can be scored. There's only, so much attention that people can give to something. Like, I've always looked at it as like, if it's Underoath, it's like, we're out here on tour, we're putting out records, but like we've got friends that are all doing the same thing. And like, I just look at it as like, that's awesome. Like, we should be, lifting each other up and all of that. And, I look at it the same way with scoring. And I think even more so because like, there's just so much being made, whether it's in the feature film realm or streaming services or commercials or whatever. It's like, I'm always just like, if there's a way that I can help you out, like, let me know. Like, DM me on social media. If you know me personally, send me a text. Like, let's like, and vice versa. Like, if there's somebody that I'm like, oh, like I think that I want to know how to do that thing they're doing. Like, I freely reach out to people all the time. Maybe it's like rude, I don't know, but I'm just like, yo, like, how did you do this? Like, that's really, really cool. I'd love to learn more about that. And like, I found that like 98% of the time people were like, oh, cool. Like, I love to nerd out about this stuff. Here's what I did. Here's the plugins I used. Here's how I went about doing that. And like, and it's never from a place of like, hey, I want to copy that. It's more so like, I see something in what you're doing that I can use in what I'm doing. And like, I think that if in general artists had that mentality across the board, A, lot more cool art would be made, but B, people would just be a lot happier. Because I think, a lot of people fall into that, like, oh, the competition mentality, and like,
well, you touched on that too. I mean, with streaming and all the madness and how much, all the stuff that's being produced. I mean, I live in Vancouver. Through this whole process of the last 2 years and what's been going on, the film and movie business did not stop in Vancouver.
Yep.
They just doubled down on testing, tripled down on testing, and plowed ahead. And at one point, I live just outside of Vancouver. At one point, I had Jim Carrey, John Cena, and the full cast of Superman and Lois all filming within 5 minutes of my house, 10 minutes of my house. And all of those are just the film and TV business was the one business that really didn't stop. Maybe they stopped for a couple of weeks, but it just kind of went going, and gaming went through the roof. You hear about, GameStop, like, stocks going crazy because kids are going nuts, and Twitch and the rise of Twitch. So I'd imagine that would open up a whole other avenue of potential for you, just to score video games, to score all of it. So that's pretty
one thing that I was super thankful for is I had a project I was working on, a film I was working on when COVID hit, but then like like everything else that I had in the pipeline, at the first thing everyone thought was, okay, like we need to like go into post. Like, what can we do post wise? Like, so a lot of times they were looking at me being like, okay, like, well, we can't finish shooting, but what do you got on score? What can we start working on here? Like, they were going to, colorists and, sending dailies and be like, hey, like, let's get a head start on what this thing's going to look like when it comes out. Editors getting a head start, like people who are working remotely, studios and directors and producers looking at them and saying like, hey, like we can't do anything, but let's get started with you. So I was thankful for that because I've never been more busy personally than I was over the past 2 years. Like it was like day and night, which I'm thankful for. It was wild. I'm super thankful.
Do you have the same issue, or do you have this issue where you record music, the record comes out, you listen back to it and go, if I just would have this idea just came to me now? Or is like the record's done, it's out there, it's like, okay, that's what it is. Maybe I'll throw it in live or I'll do something. Same with actors that don't watch their movies or TV shows. When you score something and then maybe you watch the movie back, or do you watch the movie back to listen to how you score it?
Yeah, so for me, it's different when it comes to a record versus a film, because I feel like, particularly with Underoath, we ratchet so hard on every single song and every single part, and everything is just picked clean, that by the time the record comes out, there's only been like, I can probably count on one hand the amount of even just songs that Underoath has released over the years that I look back, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done this, because it's already gone through so much of that by the time the record comes out. But working on a film's a little different because usually there's just a lot tighter of a timeline. And there are times when, I'll get done with a piece and I'm like, man, I would love to wrench on this more and like tweak things here and there and like maybe take some space away from it. But I just don't have time. Like I have to have this many minutes done by the end of the week, so I have to move on. So there's a lot more of that. And a lot of times also what'll happen is like 3/4 of the way through working on a film, I will happen upon a sound or a theme or something where I'm like, I wish I had this when I started, because I feel like this is what this film sounds like, this sound, this instrument, this whatever. And like, I try to do as much of that work as I can beforehand, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And it's just. Do
you watch movies different now? Because I never want to know the inside of movies, because I love it, and TV and film, and I love them so much. And every now and again, I'll hear, directors talk about, well, we use this camera on this and we move this and that. And we came through the time of like the DVD with like the extras and how they filmed it. And that was all fun to learn how they shot little things. Yeah. But when I go to a concert now, as a fan, I'm looking up and going, oh, how many pounds did they put in the roof for rigging? And hey, they're running 7 minutes behind. What's going on? My brain instantly goes to how the show is doing. So when you watch a show or a movie, not your actual something that you scored, but when you watch a film, are you now listening and very consciously listening to the score and going, wow, that was interesting what they did there? And does it ruin your experience now?
Yeah. So it's a little different, yes, in that I do pay more attention to the score now, but it's something that for me enhances the viewing experience. It doesn't like, take any of the magic away or anything like that. Cause I am just such a movie nerd. Like on days off, I go to a movie theater, I get my popcorn, I get my M&Ms, and I'm just like, let's go. Like, just let me be in this, but there will be things that I'll see or things that I'll hear that I'll be like, oh, that's cool. Like I'm able to gather a greater appreciation for what it is that's going on, particularly musically, but sometimes edit wise as well, because I'm involved in that process sometimes. But yeah, it's nothing negative. Like what's funny though, is like when it comes to like bands and shows and stuff, I tend to be more like you, or like I'll look at, what production's going on there, like what I'm listening and I'm like, I don't think that vocal harmony is being sang right now, like that sort of stuff. But
totally,
but that doesn't take away from my friends. But I don't really go to concerts much, but I go to movies all the time. So yeah,
my fear is that my movie experience would be ruined by knowing too much about it. Because I listen to actors on other pods or something, and they're like, we did this and we did that, and that's great. But I would imagine that a director that's in a movie as an actor, it's just, why is he shooting it like this? Or why? I read Val Kilmer's book, and he was talking about Tombstone, and him and Kurt Russell were, it started out kind of okay, but then they realized very abundantly fast that the director had no clue how to shoot horses and people and all that. And they do, because they were riding them their whole life. And he goes, we had to take the film over because we're like, we've practiced this our whole life. This guy has no clue how to shoot it. And they brought a new director in to kind of rescue it because of that experience. And he's like, it ruined the experience, because you're like, now you're just constantly thinking about how to fix the film. Or you're constantly thinking about how to make it better. In concerts, I never want it's too late for me on concerts, but I never want a film to be like that ever.
No. And when I watch back stuff that I've done, it's completely that. Like, I can't watch something that I've done and enjoy it. Like, I am very much like, just like, it's like a little nerve-wracking, because I'm like, oh man, I hope I'm still gonna like the thing that I decided was okay.
Sure.
6 months ago or whatever. Like, I get super nervous, and like, not a huge fan of that. But anything else, other movies, even like other movies that from directors I've worked with, like I can watch those just as a movie fan. So
what is your, I have another show I want to get you on with my partner Chris on the Kids on the Escalator podcast that we do, and it's all film and TV and pop culture and movies.
Oh,
and
dude, yeah.
We dive into horror movies, and so I want to save some stuff for that, because I think you'd be great for that particular discussion. But one question I have for you though, after scoring film and doing all the rest of it, is there I don't want to say is there somebody that does it best, but is there a particular movie that you've watched and you're like, oh my God, like that was just, wow, mood wise, and it just took you on a journey. And I want to go mainstream right now, because I know a lot of people don't follow a lot of indie films. You might have seen it in.
You're talking about score in particular?
Yeah, like a score and sort of like that mood. Like who do you think has set the best mood that you've seen in a movie?
I will say that the movie that I watched that made me like walk out thinking that's what I want to do is this Danny Boyle movie called Sunshine. It's got Cillian Murphy in it, it's like a ensemble cast. It's really,
nice.
really good. But this guy John Murphy did the score for that, and I feel him on so many levels. Like, whenever I hear a score that he's done, I'm just like, that's it. Like, that's what I would do. That's what I would want to do. He also did the score for 28 Days Later. He did the score for 28 Weeks Later. He did the new Suicide Squad movie. He's just insanely talented all around. But also anything that Johnny Greenwood has scored, I just am in awe of. Like, he is just one of those guys, man. I don't know, just an absolute genius, and I am so jealous of his ability. Like, I know it's all practice, but there's something extra that guy has. Like, there's like when I watched he did this movie with Joaquin Phoenix called You Were Never Really Here. And I didn't know that he scored it before I was watching it. And I was watching it with my wife, and like a quarter of the way through, I was like, I don't know who scored this, but this is bananas. Like, this is crazy. And like, once I realized that I loved the score, I was, paying a little more attention as the film went on. And at the end, like before the end credits rolled, I was like, whoever this is a genius. Like, I wanted it to be like some no-name person that I was just discovering, but I was like, oh, there we go. Okay.
Did you watch Uncut Gems?
Yes.
So
Man.
people that has got a controversial tag to it about the music consistently through it and then being like mixed really loud throughout and distracting. So people have this take on that movie, kind of like some people are like that maybe don't appreciate art for some. I couldn't watch it, or the music was too loud, or it's too frantic. And I think the franticness was brought in to keep with Adam Sandler's theme of being frantic and insane. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, about that side of it, and then I want to move on to something. But yeah, what did you think of that?
I adore that film. I think that the score for that one is just so bold. Like when I watched it, I was thinking like, man, I would never have the balls to score this film this way. Like that just takes from the director and the composer, like a confidence in like that vision, which I don't know if I could have. Like I don't know if I could do that, but I love it. I love the score. I never really had an issue with the mix on it personally. But conversely, I feel like Christopher Nolan, as great as the scores are to his films, I have always had an issue, particularly his films, The Dark Knight Rises and on, of the way that he mixes the music in them. Like as much as I love film music, I think that he mixes it all too loud. And it works great if you are just wanting to listen to the music, but if you want to be able to tell what's being said by the actors, it's not.
It's a little annoying.
Not good. So I mean, the dude's genius, obviously. One of the greatest living directors, one of the best directors ever, in my opinion. But I think that he is probably at a point where no one is telling him no.
No, I would assume so.
Yes. So
now okay, we'll get rolling because it's your day off. You probably want to go see a movie, but so obviously we've talked about production and you play with these guys and you got a brand new record. You play live, you're back on tour, all these things. You're wearing a lot of hats, technically and business wise and all the rest of it. Which hat do you wear the best, or do they all coincide together?
I would say that they all feed different parts of me. Like there's something about being on tour that is, and playing live shows, that I don't think you'll ever get that sort of energy and that sort of experience anywhere else. But on the same token, like I would love to be able to be on tour as much as we are now and be in this band until I'm 80,
Right.
But just knowing how bands and stuff work, like I don't think that that's probably going to happen. So I look at my film work as like, this is a thing that I could feasibly see myself doing into my elderly years. Like I could see myself being in my 70s and my 80s and, getting a film sent to me and being like, I'll do this, take a couple months and score a film, and also doing that allows me to be home and spend more time with my kids and my wife. So that's always a plus. So, it's just different parts of me, get fed in different ways, but I'd love to be able to do both forever, but
it keeps changing. And I know you're touching a bit on where I'm going to go at the end with this thing, but it obviously our careers and stuff change over the time, and our paths change. And you just, I was going to do this and I was going to do that, and I was going to start. I'm going to be a big rock star, but actually, no, I like tour managing more, or I'm going to do this. Or everyone has their own kind of like journey that they've taken that will take them into different kind of parts of the business. Mm-hmm. First part of this question is, what is your definition of making it? I'm not talking about Chris's, because I'm going to ask you if you've made it after this, but what do you think making it means in general?
I would say that it probably means achieving whatever it is that you wanted to achieve when you started. I think, that wouldn't be my personal take on it necessarily, but I would think that if you start out trying to do something, whether it's getting a degree or putting out a record or whatever your thing happens to be, if you're able to get to a point where you're like, I did the thing that I've been working toward, then I think that that's making it.
How many times has that bar changed for you?
So the way that I look at it is my bar has never really moved from the time that I was in high school. Like I always say that like any milestone that I was hoping to get or achieve with this band or with music or anything, that was decades ago that I got to that point. So like, the fact that we, all the things that you point to and be like, oh, like that's an achievement, whether it's the amount of records we've had or numbers on tour or Grammy nominations or any of that stuff. It's like the fact that we're able to like, we played a sold out show where, back 15, 18 years ago where people knew the words to our music. Like from that point on, I was like, whatever comes after this is just like icing on the cake, and granted, my view on this as being like my career has changed because like we never aspired for this to be our career. Like we just wanted to play music together. So, there are, other goalposts that I look at, as far as with film composing, my only goal for that, and I'll look back on this interview in 10 years and hopefully, it's all good. But my only goal is to be continually doing it and making enough money doing it to where if at some point Spencer breaks his neck headbanging on stage when he's 50 and we're no longer able to tour, then I'm like, okay, like I don't need to do that anymore. I'm going to stay home and I'm going to score films for the remainder of my life. And I'm able to pay my family's bills and keep our house. And, if I can pay our bills, keep our house and see my wife and kids when I want, that's all I want. Like, period.
So final question on that subject then. Has Chris Dudley made it?
Oh yeah. Long time ago. As it pertains to, the band for sure a long time ago. But the fact that I am I'm doing film work at all, that is, that's my own sort of making it things. I'm like, I can go on iTunes right now and buy a movie that I scored. Like that's crazy. But as far as that other goalpost of like doing it long term, I think that that's something that I won't know until I'm probably in my
What was the
40s or
point?
50s, so.
What was the point here that you knew that you could do this for a living for the rest of your life? And if it's just music and not score, or if it's scoring, where is the point where you're like, I got it?
I don't know. I mean, I know that I want to do it for the rest of my life, but it sucks that there's like a whole business component where it's like, you can do it as long as there are people that want to hear it. So I don't know if I'm at a point where I'm like, oh yeah, I will do this for the rest of my life. Like I will do it as long as I'm able to. Like Underoath will go on tour and continue to put out records until people decide that they don't want to come see us or they don't want to listen to our records anymore. Then it's like, that would be a telling thing. Or, I will score films until I no longer get called by directors and producers, or I can't pay my bills doing it. Because as a dad, like that's my number one thing. Like I got to make sure that we have our house and I got to make sure that my kids have food. And if music's not doing it, then I'll go do something else. Cause I'm first and foremost a dad and a husband. And I'm thankful that my career has been music. But if at some point that's not the case, I'm okay with that. So I'm just
open a restaurant. Do you have a third thing in the can in the list that you're like, all right, if that doesn't go and that doesn't go, I'm definitely going to do that.
I'm really good with computers, and I've got like IT certifications.
Sure.
And when Underoath broke up for a few years ago, and that's what I did during that. I was working from home and just doing like remote IT work, and it was honestly so sick because I got to hang out with my kids all day and just be on the computer and have dinner with my wife and kids every night. And I was, perfectly content doing that. And then, we decided we wanted to do Underoath again. And I was like, great, let's go, So, whatever it is I'm doing, I'll be, I'll make myself, I'll put myself in a position where it works out good for me.
New record. It's called Voyeurist.
Yes, sir.
With these fine chaps. And you're on tour, which is awesome. And that must be a great feeling. I know it is for me to be back out here.
It's crazy. Awesome.
It's doing it. You know what I mean? So outside of all the production side of it and all the rest of it, tell me a little bit about the record. Where is it fit? Where is it live for you? And a little bit about what's happening with tour and the rest of 22 looking like for you. Right?
Yeah. So the record, for us it's probably the most like personal and blunt record that we've ever had. It's super personal for us also because we did the entire thing ourselves. So it's like the buck for everything stops with us. It's not like, they worked with this producer who may have had this weird input or whatever. It's literally just like us. So we absolutely love it. And what the response has been like almost like concerningly good from people. Because we're only seeing like positive feedback, and I don't know if that might be a bad thing because maybe the people who wouldn't like it just aren't listening. I don't know, but we've been hearing a lot of like, this is the record that I wanted to hear from Underoath after insert record here, whether it's after They're Only Chasing Safety or Defying the Right Line, Lost in the Sound, Disambiguation, Erase Me. Well, it is the record after Erase Me, but a lot of people are saying that. Like, and that's an interesting thing for me to hear because I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, because we never go into working on a record with an intent on, we want to write something that people will like because X. It's always just like, we're going to write what we want to write and we hope that other people like it, and the fact that this record is something that all six of us are just like ridiculously stoked on. And the fact that people are saying that this is exactly what they want from our band. It's like, that's cool. Like, I'll take it, and the response to the new songs live has been great.
Well, that's the key. You get to go out and play it live.
Yeah.
And so many bands dropped records in the middle of 2020 and haven't been able to get out till now. And by now your cycle is generally done. And now you're actually out doing it again and being able to play them live and sort of seeing just what kind of impact that record has on people too. And that's key to any artist's success is, if it's stiff and live, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
But you get
for
to
sure.
see it,
Yeah. The response has been great. And, just in general, you're asking about tour, just, being in rooms full of people, period, playing music is just the best. And, this is like, I think it's technically the biggest headliner that we've ever done, like ever, which is crazy because, we've been doing this for a really long time. And the fact that like stuff is still just onward and upward is awesome. And the crowds live are just great. And we're just in it, living day by day at this point. So it's
how long does this tour go for? Is this one here, right?
Yeah, we're going till I think March 27th is the last show.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, make sure you guys check out Underoath777.com. I like the title of that website. It's inside.
Good times.
It's funny stuff. Chris can be found at chrisdudleymusic.com. Yeah, you can find all the things Chris there. And but definitely make sure you go out there and pick up the new Underoath album. Voyeurist. Make sure you go check them live because these guys slam live. They were great with us. Perfect spot on the tour on Corn and Allison Chains. Just come out, hammer the place into the ground, and they did that every single night. Coffee lovers like myself, and just great guys all the way around. So, Chris, my friend, thank you so much for making the time today. We're both on tour.
Man.
We value our days off, and I appreciate you giving me a little bit of time today to.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm glad it finally worked out, and we'll chat soon.
Awesome, buddy. We'll see you next time.
All right,
for sure. That's Chris. Everybody, so that is the Brenton On Tour podcast for another week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as I said, this series is going along about making it and your definition. And I really appreciate you guys tuning in weekly on all the platforms, BrentonOnTour.com, wherever you get your pods. See you next week, everybody.